Hello, hello, hello! Welcome to Oye Dimelo Cinema Club. My name is Dino Spazzini, and I'm here with Jason Eccles, JP Morgan, and Steve El Desiree. Today's movie that we're going to be talking about is one that I picked. It is The Hidden Fortress. It's a movie from 1958. It's directed and written by Akira Kurosawa, and it has Toshiro Mifune as one of the stars of the movie. I picked this film. I had seen it once, maybe twice before, and I'm just a huge Akira Kurosawa fan and a huge Toshiro Mifune fan. You can ask Jason. I went, I don't know, a couple months just watching every single Toshiro Mifune movie that I could find. So big fan of both of them. And after the different films that people were choosing in our group and seeing different stuff outside of the group, I was like, you know what? I think it'd be good to watch one of these films and talk about it, because so much of what we see today has been somehow inspired by some of Akira Kurosawa's films. The Hidden Fortress specifically inspired George Lucas and the Star Wars movies and stuff like that. So before we get into that, yeah, I'd like to hear the first impressions, and I'll start with Steve because he's waving his hand.
Yay, my turn. Well, it's my turn. So let me remove you from it. Okay, there we go. Uh, my initial thoughts of this movie is I haven't watched this movie. And that's the reason I wanted to go first because I legit, like, I was planning to watch it yesterday and my day just went by and I was gonna watch it today. And okay, as we are filming this thing, because you're gonna see this in the future, as we're filming this thing, there's crazy stuff happening in Wall Street. And in order for me to keep up with everything, I have to pay attention to everything. And I literally haven't even been able to sleep in this past 3 days because that's how much stuff is going on, and my brain is just buzzing with dopamine. So I am sorry I couldn't watch this movie. I am going to watch this movie because I noticed that this film inspired George Lucas, and I am a huge Star Wars fan, especially the first three, like the originals. I am one of those like hardcore Star Wars original fans, and I definitely want to watch this movie. I'm gonna listen to everything y'all got to say to reinforce me watching this movie. But I do plan to watch this movie later in the week after my birthday because my birthday's also this weekend. But
Ooh,
Yeah.
damn! What do you
Yeah.
want for your birthday? AMC stock?
Heck
What would you
yeah!
like?
Get
I
the
mean,
Black
if it,
Friday
Gift
team
card.
at Morgan.
We'll
Get it.
send you an AMC gift card.
yeah, just give me AMC gift cards.
There you
Honestly,
go.
honestly, if you guys collectively like chip in like $2 and give me like a $6 AMC card, bro, that will make my day. I'm not even gonna lie. Like,
All right, I'll see what maybe I got a coupon for a free drink or
no,
something.
legit, I'm going to see, and I'm sorry, I'm plugging another movie here, but I want to see Godzilla versus King Kong on like a big screen.
Okay, all right, moving on. Moving on. How dare you? All
Get
right,
that extra butter.
first impression, JP. So, you look so good in front of Toshiro Mifune there. What's the
Yeah, it was man. So like, I guess spoiler alert: Des would have hated this movie. No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
oh, really?
Nah. I'm just effing. No, but like, yeah, like I've never seen any of Kurosawa's movies, which is funny because like you see every behind the scenes stuff, like every director, they'll bring him up at least once. If it's not him, Fortress, it's Seven Samurais. Like, they bring him up all the time. He's like everyone's like go to, and yeah, I did see like the heavy Star Wars influences, especially beginning the movie with two of probably like the most weakest characters, or like seemingly weakest characters in the narrative, right? And there's only three Star Wars movies. I'm just gonna say that there's only three. Um,
damn? Only is that episode 2, episode 7, and episode 9. Are those the
No,
three
it's
only?
Attack of the Clones and
There is no episodes. There's only Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. There are no episodes.
All right.
Nah, but like, yeah, no, like, what's my first impression really, like, almost from the get-go, and I don't know if this was remastering that was available online for streaming, but the picture is incredibly crisp. It's so clear, and like the amount of like use of the camera in this movie like surprised me, because like, you know, this was late 50s. Like those were huge, they were heavy things, and they were doing pan shots, like they were following the action so smoothly. And it's like, you gotta imagine like what kind of equipment were they like having to chug along just to follow that and make it seem so seamless and clear. But like, yeah, the movie is it's so funny. Like I had so many like moments, because you could tell like yes, they're actors, but they're in actual elements. They're in there are moments where like someone's gonna die. Like someone's gonna get hurt on screen if they haven't, you know. And they just, you know, pulled it along. It was great. But like overall, it was a fun go around. Like it was so awesome. Like I really did enjoy this movie. I wish I had time to give it a second watch. And now I'm probably gonna see more Kurosawa's films, because like it's so funny. Like you could see some of the influences not only from like what George Lucas made, but also from other creators who have brought it up. And like now I'm really excited to like not only see this one again, but probably watch his other works. So yeah, first impressions, first thought, freaking great. I was late in the game, so I'm glad I'm at least in it now. So it's great.
That's awesome.
All right, Jason.
Yeah. So this movie for me, like right away, the only thing I ever knew about it was that this is where Star Wars came from. So that's my only, reference, other than being a Kurosawa fan, Kurosawa's fan. Um, you know, everything JP said. Let's just go with that because I agreed with all of it. It was all spot on. Um, there were some. This is one of those movies that it's it's so tight in a big world. There's not like big sets or anything, but there's like a big little open world. And he manages to put so much chaos on the screen for just these little moments, like they're crawling up the rocks. You know what I mean? Like there's just so much chaos in that little box and that little screen, and he's just showing us so much about who these people are with just that. Not easy shots to get, that the actors have to carry like huge loads and be very physical and athletic and be ready to move and act in his space. And it's everything a great movie should be. It looks wonderful. It's great acting. It's got its own spirit. You know what I mean? Like the whole style of the film has its own spirit and rawness and comedy. It's pretty wonderful actually. Like I can see why this would inspire Star Wars. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And huge Mifune fan, obviously. He's been probably my favorite Japanese actor of all time. Probably one of my top 10 favorite actors of all time. It's amazing. So yeah, that's my first impression of this movie.
Nice. Yeah, the fact that JP was saying someone could possibly get hurt, and you brought up the scene of going up the rocks and stuff like that. I was watching that and like I was like, how can they do that barefoot, right? Or even just like tiny little like leather sandals, and they're just like running up just like falling rocks basically. And just see it's impressive of just like the directors saying action, and I guess I gotta crawl up some rocks that are falling down.
Yeah, like they must have been non-union, because I would not do that.
Exactly. So before I do want to break down the whole I just happen to be wearing a Star Wars shirt. I do want to break down the Star Wars stuff in a little bit, but before we get into that, do you guys have a favorite character or scene? I'll go one of my favorite. Toshiro Mifune is great, but there's the scene that he gets on the horse to run down the samurais that are, after him, and he's just like full gallop with his samurai sword, just like able to chop him down. And by the time he gets the last one, he ends up in the bad guys, camp, and he gets surrounded. And that, I mean, that alone is just such a great, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes of cinema, of like the camera work, the editing, and then, think of like Kill Bill, even when, Uma Thurma, the bride, is in the Japanese restaurant, and she like swings the sword and all of them kind of retreat, and he does the same thing when he jumps off the horse, and he's just like testing out the spears and just like does a flinch, and everyone flinches, and it's like all this movement and motion. It's like breathing. The film is breathing. Like everything has a purpose with the way Kurosawa films, and all the background characters. So that scene to me is one of my favorite ones. Of just showing how badass, this character is, how badass Mifune is. And again, there's like no talking. There's very little talking throughout the movie, and it's great. So that's definitely one of my favorite scenes of the film. Do you guys have a character or favorite scene?
Yeah, it would have to be like, this is funny because like for me it's like they're not even my favorite because man, it's a package deal. It has to be the two peasants from the beginning of the film. Like there's moments where like you just can't help it but hate these fucking knuckleheads. But it's like they're just along for the ride. It's just they're going on with what the fuck is going around in life. But it has to be like them. My favorite scene is them too. And when they first meet, when they first see the general, right? Because he's literally even doing the cross arm stance. You first see him like just like open legs, cross armed in the back, and then I was like, oh, someone's here, and it's literally it's the most funniest tense scene because I don't know what this guy's gonna do, and those three are basically in the middle of nowhere, like going up a bunch of rocks in a creek, and it's just like a game of like who's gonna do something first. And then the scene afterwards, which is just like literally just tops that, is the fire scene when he finally decides like I'm gonna be the boss, I'm gonna claim their fire, and they can't do jack about it. And they're both the two peasants having the one of them was like, no, you tell them to fuck off. No, you tell them to fuck off. And they don't have the courage whatsoever. Next thing you know, it's like, yeah, he one-ups them, and he has two basically lackeys to join on his little adventure. It was just like those two scenes with those three. It was just very good.
Yeah, I think lackeys is a good word for those guys. It's funny, but they were going to do better off with him than they would have done by themselves. So they got something really good out of it. They wouldn't have done that well. Just trying to figure out life. The two of them, they were already failing pretty bad. Just a side note, but I think I really liked their relationship the most in the movie. Not just like one actor, but they kind of operate as one actor. They're always together, and when they're not together, they're kind of miserable. You know what I mean? So they like definitely need each other. And that's, I guess, that R2D2 CP3O relationship. You're kind of seeing the story through their perspective, because they're the narration, I guess, of how everybody feels. They kind of keep the audience like, oh, so and so's there, here. So yeah, I think I like what they do the best in the movie. But I mean, that just stands out my first viewing. I'm sure in time I will see this movie again.
Cool. Yeah, and that's not to say that the princess in this film, she's pretty kick-ass also.
Oh, she's dope.
Like,
She's super dope.
she's so smart. You know, Toshiro Mifune, they try to trick her and like, oh, she's super stubborn. If I tell her she can do something, she'll do that. And so like they try to trick her into being like a mute of like just like, hey, you probably can't do this, you probably won't be able to. And she reads right through them. And it's just like, I know what you're doing. I know that you think because you say that I'm not. But this one time, I'm gonna let you trick me. Like just all the characters are so well like flushed out. And I mean, there's a fire festival. I imagine the only good fire festival ever, unlike the other fire festival that came, a few years ago. So, all right. So yeah. So I just wanted to put out there because there is comparisons that people talk between Star Wars and the Hidden Fortress, and even George Lucas tries to point out that the princes in his film, like, actually are about standing and fighting, whereas the princess in this one is fleeing away. Which I don't necessarily agree with that because it's kind of like she's running away, but she stands up and fights. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
she makes a good point throughout the
Oh,
film to actually.
okay, I gotta tell something to the people. The real reason I didn't watch this movie is because Dino doesn't want to give me his login to HBO Max.
Oh, is
Oh
that
my
it?
god.
Is that it? You said you put the movie online.
Hey! I didn't put no movie online.
No, that's
I didn't put
illegal.
no.
That's illegal. You can't talk. You can't
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the reason I didn't watch it because I don't have a streaming password. But
You're not even in the same country, man. I can't do that.
yeah, I mean, there's VPNs, So,
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll talk. I'll share it with you, just
okay,
because you're calling me out.
I'm talking
HBO
about
Max,
Princess
you
Leia.
hear this? All right. So
Don't forget to watch the new Harley Quinn series on HBO Max. And
it's great. I've seen it. It's funny. I recommend that too.
Don't forget to watch Godzilla versus King Kong on IMAX on an AMC near you.
Get out of here. I forget what I was gonna say. Oh, anyway, but yeah, I feel like there's also multiple strong female characters in this film, whereas in the Star Wars film, it's basically just Princess Leia,
Yeah.
right? And then a bunch of bros. But in this one, you not only do you have the princess, then apparently, I mean, you have Toshiro Mifune's sister, who was like a double for the princess, and you don't see her, but you hear about it that she basically gets, assassinated, and that was her job, and she did her job. And then the peasant that they save and seems to take up. Anyway, so George Lucas talks about how what really interested him in this movie. He actually, when he listed the films, he listed Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, and then Hidden Fortress was like fourth or fifth in his list. But what he did like about it was seeing it from the perspective of the lowest characters, which were the peasants, especially kind of in a caste system. So he was really interested in how the whole movie you kind of follow through the eyes of the two characters and not like the heroes, if you will. So that really interested him. He talks about how after that everything's a little coincidence, but in the original drafts of A New Hope, there's definitely more of the story of a older Jedi with the princess and having to navigate through enemy lines, which, if you think about it, ended up being Episode 1, Phantom Menace, where you have Liam Neeson taking,
I'm a darling.
Yeah. taking her, and she's hiding under, like she's pretending to be a servant also. So not only, it's not just, I was going to say Once Upon a Time. No, A New Hope. It's not just the first Star Wars, but in all his Star Wars films, there's definitely moments from the Hidden Fortress, including the way he transitions from scene to scene. A lot of they call it the Star Wars or the George Lucas swipe or wipe, whatever. But Kurosawa was doing it back in $58 in black and white, which is
he basically stole all of Kurosawa's shit and put space on it and made $1 billion.
It's like, oh, you know, it was like, oh yeah,
really,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But you don't understand. The girl fights back after her home.
Not only that,
right? Exactly. Yeah.
She doesn't run away.
So
no. My girl's different. My girl fought to the very end.
Wait. Let me ask something. So basically, is this another tale of a white man like stealing from another culture?
No.
Yeah,
you don't understand.
So.
The girl fights back, Des.
Yeah. It's just coincidence. It's coincidence that he wanted Toshiro Mifune to be Obi-Wan. And really? Mifune had just, I forget what movie, he had just done 1 or 2 American films.
Oh, that's right.
That didn't do well.
Did they have fighting sticks too?
Yeah.
Man.
They did. But anyway, so George Lucas wanted Toshiro Mifune to play Obi-Wan. And because he was, you know, it was in the late 70s, you know, and, you know, Toshiro Mifune was a little older at that point. And he had done a handful or a couple of films in the US that didn't do well. So Mifune's agent was like, no, you don't want to do this. This is going to be like, this is going to be crap.
He would have been such a great Obi-Wan. I mean, you know, Alec Guinness was really amazing, but I mean,
it would have been completely different. I mean,
I would have been in that multiverse for a bit. I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
It's just cooler.
So knowing that kind of background, what did you see that felt like in Star Wars now that you saw the Hidden Fortress, whether it's plot lines, characters, cinematography wise, that you can see a tie-in with Hidden Fortress?
I'll go first. That scene that they have Baby Yoda, like, come on. They just stole straight up Baby Yoda and put it in the Mandalorian, man.
Actually, we can get into Mandalorian later because there's a lot of Kurosawa in Mandalorian as well.
This is true.
Okay.
I have spoken. And just to make clear, since we're saying they're taken from, you know, Japanese culture or whatever, Kurosawa in Japan wasn't really liked at the beginning as a director because he was influenced by John Ford and those Westerns. So it was like he was a Eastern director, you know, making films inspired by Western cinema. And then Western cinema ended up borrowing from him. So it's this kind of weird circle of life. And in Japan, he didn't really get recognition, or he didn't get as huge until his first film that went to Cannes or Venice Film Festival, whichever one it was, which was Rashomon. When it won all the awards there is when all of a sudden in Japan they were like, oh, he must be really good. But anyway, yeah, guys, hopefully we don't get interrupted again by Robin Hood. What do you guys see as you know, similarities between Hidden Fortress and the Star Wars films?
So Kurosawa was into the wrong Imperial stuff. Got it.
Yeah, Civil War.
But it, like, for sure, like the one that I noticed the most had to be, of course, the 2 peasant characters, especially the first, like, 30 minutes of the film, like them having to like go through like the consequences of war, and even like them in the prison camps, you know, like R2 and C-3PO when they get to Tatooine, you know, they end up in like not a prison camp, but they're taken by the Jawas, and you know they're about to be forced into like basically be sold off to slavery. But in this movie, they are being slaves, and and instead of Luke saving them, they happen to find a way out after a rebellion within the camp. Which, oh my gosh, that was so great. Like it had it's just those little character moments with those two. Like you can't help but think back to like R2 and C3PO, especially in that beginning act. Like sure, like yes, the two characters are oddly similar, but they went through a lot of shit together, and the movie ends up you start with them, end with them. I think Star Wars kind of have the same thing. Well, they're in the last shot too, I suppose.
They're in all the movies.
Yeah, they are in all.
They're the one thing that I guess goes through all the movies.
Yeah, the thread that holds it all together. But for certain, like it's literally the first 30 minutes with them too. Like I couldn't help it. I even told Michaela, like, I'm getting some heavy. It's like beginning of New Hope vibes right now with these two guys.
Well, they're bickering, and then they even separate, from each other. Like I'm going this way,
yeah.
And R2 and C3PO do the same thing. It's like, well, I'm going this way, and then they both get, captured. So yeah, that alone is pretty on point.
For sure.
Yep.
Jason, what did you notice?
Those swipes were pretty heavy for me. Like, man, that transition, I think the first time I saw it, I was like, yep, there it is. Like, there it is. And I just, I figured it was going to be in the movie the rest of the way, and I was correct. Amundo.
Wow, even the swipes?
Yeah.
They stole that from Tinder? Wow.
Yeah. Tinder stole that from Kurosawa, swiping right and swiping left.
Wow.
In movement.
I can't believe this.
Get out of here. Go buy some stock.
Welcome to Oi Dimelo Cinema Club, where Steve Dez's jokes come to die.
Damn! Oh, shots fired.
Oh, he's back, folks.
At least they're not dying like someone's brokerage account. Oh!
I don't think anyone got that one, Steve.
Yeah, because you guys are not into stock. So
I know.
Thanks again, Steve.
Don't own stonks.
Stonks. Yeah, that was that's what I noticed. With a bunch of other Star Wars stuff, but I thought that was pretty comical, pretty funny.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad we talked about the swipes, and then you had even mentioned, I think, JP, earlier on, the editing and stuff. There are a lot of moments in the film where it is the camera, like continuous shot, but it changes. It goes from like wide to zooming in on a character to Toshiro Mifune running, and then the camera moving to his back shoulder, then moving back around and doing a wide shot and panning away. And it's on a dirt road. It's, 1958. And to be able to master that kind of, zooming in, wide shot, around the corner, following from behind the shoulder, like throughout the whole film, there are all these moments when it's like, he should probably just cut and pick up the shot somewhere else. And there was a lot of just like following the action, gonna use the camera that I have. And even that, George Lucas talked about that he liked the kind of lens work that Kurosawa and stuff like that was using. I do want to mention that in later years, Kurosawa wasn't doing great with in Japan with films, and it was actually, I think, a combination of like George Lucas and Coppola and maybe Scorsese that helped, produce one of his last films which was Kagemusha. and which is also a great film, and that was in color. He did a lot of black and white films. Even once color film came about, he still did black and white for a long time. And towards the end, for Kagemusha, he was having eye issues where either he was colorblind or he was just his eyesight was going. So just the way he used color later on is also kind of trippy because he was the way that he was seeing things and he was seeing color was not your 2020 vision. And his stills, his what do you call it, the board where he does the shot by shot or whatever.
Storyboards.
Yeah, his storyboards. He would watercolor his own storyboards, which, if you look that up, are just beautiful little paintings themselves in watercolor. So that's a little bit going. Oh my God, who's that?
It's me.
Oh no!
Look who
Oh,
made it to the
no.
party, y'all.
So yeah, so that's a little bit about the future of Kurosawa. But Michaela, what were your initial thoughts? Had you seen a Kurosawa film before?
This was my first Kurosawa, and it was so good. Oh my gosh. Like the cinematography really surprised me for what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a much like lower budget film. Well, I didn't know anything about this. I went in completely cold.
Hey, I got a question for you, Michaela. What scene or what element of the movie like you saw on Star Wars? Like exactly, like you were like, oh, this is Star Wars, or copied this straight up.
I feel
Or do you not like Star Wars because Star Wars is silly?
I think that the first sequence is very, very C-3PO R2-D2. Like that first right off the bat. Like it's not as gritty, but like them walking in like the middle of nowhere was very, and I feel like the horse chases kind of looked like the way that they orchestrated that was very like Scooter.
Oh my gosh, Dino was just talking about that.
Well, I'm glad that I'm on point. But yeah, no, like even like the way that they treated the princess character was very interesting. I don't think it was very like Star Warsy per se. Like you can definitely see like the whole idea of like the woman who's like, no, I can do this like 100% myself, and I'm smarter than all of you, Jag. You know.
But did she fight back?
I mean, there was like a whole scene where she was.
George would disagree.
Yeah, George was saying that there was a difference because the princess in Hidden Fortress was running away or escaping, whereas in his Star Wars film, the princess stands and fights back, which, you know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they established that she wanted to stay and fight.
I don't understand.
B.
What
George,
Alderaan
George,
is
George, please.
destroyed.
George, please.
Oh, okay.
George, please. George, please. And what would you call them escaping the Death Star?
Yeah. I like when you guys are sitting there, it looks like you guys have the backpacks for a second, like the wood backpacks.
Yes. I can't get over how good her eyebrows were. Like the whole time I was just like,
Yeah. In his films, there's definitely some, even not so much in this one, but a lot of kabuki kind of makeup at times, or just facial expressions.
Well, I wanted to actually do some research on that because like the way that he had a lot of them, like their movements, their physicality, makes me wonder if that was like the actors themselves making those choices, or if that was like the director being like, no, this is what this character is, and like she has to move sharp, so we know that she's.
Oh, without a doubt, and I'll tell you how you know, because when the movie first starts, the first thing we see is this crazy orchestration on stage. This guy turning around who's being run down by these dudes trying to kill him, and he almost is wearing like kabuki makeup. You know what I mean, on his face. It's just a ton of makeup and a look, and it's got the the head shaved, and he looks like a thing that's happening,
Right.
And there's a lot of acting and a lot of facial expression. It just sort of set the tone that that's what we're about to see. That the director, this is the universe.
Yeah. No, and it's just like the way that they just let the actor, like the scene where she's crying is so powerful. Like she's not saying anything, she's just weeping, and it's just like the fact that they managed to get that so intimately.
Which scene was that?
I was like right before she has to leave, or like right after she found out about her double being killed.
Oh,
She actually goes away, and like they have
that's
like, and the fact that they even have like such a feminine character doing such like a masculine show of emotion, I found was very astute.
nice.
I'll go ahead and ask a question since Dino is loading his brain. What did you guys think about Jar Jar Binks?
Oh man, he was one of the people in the camp. One of the people that they give the gold to, and then Jar Jar Binks is like, "Ooh, Misa." No, but another connection is that general that ends up switching sides has a big old scarred up face, and then Darth Vader, once he shows his scarred face, he ends up helping and does the right thing. I also thought that was a really powerful, that ending scene with when they've been captured and the princess starts talking about, whoo, and she starts singing the Fire Festival song.
Yeah.
It was.
You start singing it, and you're like, yeah.
Yes, Queen.
It was good.
I think that's what made it, being a foreign film, being, in a different language. The Kurosawa films, normally they don't talk a lot, but when they do, it just makes it so much more impressive. Everything is very visual, but the moments that they say stuff just takes it to a whole nother level. Other than in this film, the R2D2 C3PO characters are bickering the whole time, and that alone is hilarious because they can never be satisfied, right? Like it's like, oh, at least we have our lives. Yeah, we have our lives. And then they find like a little gold and it's like, no, it's mine. No, it's mine. Oh, we'll split it 50-50. And then they lose it. You know what? Let's just be friends. We're poor. They like have every little instance of like redeeming qualities that they usually end up just like, no, you know what? We're gonna do the wrong thing. And
Well, and like their bickering dialogue is so, like, I don't know if it was just like the translation that like they read, like I'd be very interested to see if the context was still the same in, like, if I understood Japanese, like if the context would still be as like gritty and raw and being like,
right.
but like the dynamic that they managed to achieve with the dialogue was so good. That's what surprised me. It was like, it felt very modern. It wasn't like, I would have been very shocked. Like, there's no way in hell that they would have had the same kind of level of dialogue in America in '59 like that. Like they wouldn't.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Bantering, like they were still very much in the of Vincent Price being like, well, everything's very dramatic.
Yeah.
And we're not going to call we don't cuss yet. We're just barely getting there, being like, oh, yeah.
I know the I used to also watch these films. I worked at my school library, college library, and that's how I stumbled onto these. Someone that worked there would order the films, and it was usually Criterion Collection ones. So then I would watch the film, and then I would sometimes watch it again with the audio commentary, which usually were movie historians or Japanese movie historians, and clearly Criterion Collection, they've updated the subtitles throughout, right? So there's clearly been modernization of what the subtitles are. That being said, these are a lot of the same themes are in what Kurosawa puts in his films, right? So it's a lot about social caste and where you are in that kind of and the struggle. There's a lot about civil war and where you fit in, trying to find happiness. And there's a lot of cases of having to deal with stuff like rape. Like even it's a weird thing, but you leave those guys for like 2 seconds alone with a sleeping woman, and they're pulling straws to see who goes out on a walk, right? Like it's it doesn't just like shy away from that. And then in Star Wars, they open the thing and there's Leia sleeping, when they're about to save her. And it's like, I'm sure there was a scene that got edited out because, I'm sure George Lucas was like, all right, now Han Solo and Luke are going to say, okay, whoever pulls the shorter lightsaber has to go walk around for a second.
But like they kind of did have that conversation though.
Oh yeah, like you think a guy like me and a princess?
No. They had that moment.
Yeah, I know. That's
Explicit.
We were even. I had brought up that episode 1, Phantom Menace, has a lot from this film as well. That the original New Hope, the original script dealt more with old Jedi and the princess, and trying to get through enemy lines, which ended up changing. And then episode 1 was basically that, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Taken the princess. But anyway, all right. So how about we go into final thoughts for the film? We'll start with JP.
Final thoughts. Like man, like I felt like I was so late into the game with this one because, like I said before in my beginning thoughts, like almost every well-known director has brought up this man's work, and I've never seen them whatsoever. I only seen bits of it in documentaries and bits of it in like just film behind the scenes stuff. Like, oh, when you compare this scene to this scene and whatnot, and then just to see it in context, it's like it was just like it was spot on. Like it's basically like what every good movie should have. It's got the conflict, the hero, and then like it's just those two guys like throughout the whole film, like it just holds it all together so well. I'm not gonna lie, there was a few times near the end where it was like the movie I wish just ended right there, and I would have been okay with it. But even the additional scenes afterwards are so good. I mean, it's just it holds up really absolutely well. And there's a reason for it. Is because, every other great movie that was made, bits of it was taken from that one. So yeah, A+, got it.
George Lucas also liked to point out that there are only 32 plots, right? For so that we all take from other stuff.
Right.
It made it clear.
Well,
Jason.
Dr. James Campbell.
Yeah.
I don't know what my brain was doing there.
James Cameron.
Maybe.
Titanic.
Maybe.
Rose Dawson. I'm just gonna shut the fuck up now. I'm sorry. That's my next movie suggestion.
Anyways.
James Campbell.
Anyways, James Cameron. Joseph.
Jason Eccles, final thoughts?
I love this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I would highly recommend it to pretty much anyone. You know what I mean? Like this is one of those movies that I would throw at anyone and tell them they should see it. And I don't really care what they think about it because they probably should just see it. Yeah. Oh, you haven't seen Hidden Fortress? You should check that out. When I watch movies that are so stylized like this, and I know it's Kurosawa, it just makes me want to watch more Kurosawa films. I'm like, oh man, like, but I'm searching for ones that I haven't seen before, because he's made a lot of movies, man, and you got to get them all in. So, yeah, so I like to visit them every once in a while. Always, I haven't seen a bad one yet. They've all been pretty great, actually. So, yeah, I would, this is no different. So, highly recommend, love it to death. And of course, Toshiro Mifune, brilliant, per always.
Nice. Michaela, final thoughts?
I mean, it really is like a masterclass in good filmmaking. It's something very rare when you see like all the elements come together to make such like you can just tell he understands what this medium is and what it can do. And that's why, like, I feel like if you took a kid and you sat him in front of this, like, he would sit for the whole 2 hours, because like that's like something that astonished me. It's like when I first saw that it was 2 hours, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a trek. But like it went by so quickly.
Yeah.
I didn't even like when it was over, I was just like, oh wow, it's already midnight. Like, and I feel like you can like sit anyone down and they would get enraptured in it eventually, even if they didn't like black and white, even if like it's good storytelling at the end of the day. So I would highly recommend this film.
For me, first off, there's a great documentary on Toshiro Mifune, on the actor. It's Mifune, The Last Samurai, and I think that's on Amazon Prime. So if you guys are interested, first off, watch the other Akira Kurosawa, Toshiro Mifune films, but that documentary is pretty great. Apparently, later on, when he would have people over and he would get drunk, he would pull out his samurai sword and just start kind of being drunk and swinging his samurai sword around. So that's great that he stuck to that. For me, final thoughts. Out of all the films that I had originally watched when I first stumbled onto Kurosawa, this was one of the ones that weren't, I guess, wasn't in my like top three of his movies. Like I always can watch Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Sanguro, like all of those I would like rewatch multiple times. And this one I was kind of like, eh. But rewatching it now after I don't know, like 14 years, 15 years, I'm just like, wow, this movie has a lot. Like it might not be his more known films other than of course people talking about Star Wars and all that, but it's so clean and it's so crisp, because some of the older black and white films don't come out as clear, but this one, I mean, is pretty on point. So it's definitely kind of uh rocketed up in probably the top three or top five of Kurosawa films that I would definitely recommend, because it's better than what I remember it being. Like I remember it being like it's a black and white movie, like samurai movie, like it's got some good stuff. But rewatching it now, I'm just like, oh wow, it has so many great things. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend this. Watching it again after all these years, I like it even more than when I first watched it. But I recommend any Kurosawa film. Usually, and this one's not that long. Seven Samurai is close to 4 hours, or three plus hours. So this one I think is on the shorter spectrum of length for films. And yeah, I love him. Kurosawa, Mifune. They were like the original De Niro, Scorsese, or Spielberg, Harrison Ford type of thing, and they did not sell out.
I don't know if they were the first, but I know what you're saying. It's a lot
Who
of
was
Alfred Hitchcock and Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. Actually, Jimmy Stewart and Frank Capra. They were doing their thing, and there was
Charlie
also
Chaplin and Charlie Chaplin, right? Actor
he never stopped. So
Ever.
yeah, there's been a few John Ford and John Wayne. You know.
Yeah. And they laid the racism thick on that. So.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take down some pilgrims.
All right, so that's basically it. I think we're all in agreement that you should go out and watch The Hidden Fortress. It's a good time.
Of course, dedicated is.
This is one also that you could just have in the background. Like, I feel like this would go great in one of those hipstery bars where you just have it playing in the bar and people are just like, oh my God, that's so cool. Who's that hottie? You know, stuff like that.
Why have a wingman when you got this fucking movie, right?
Right.
Right. All right,
Yeah, I just come to this bar to watch the movies on silent.
There you go. Or even, I mean, this is one that it could, because the music is so good. That's the other thing in his films. The music's really good. So you could have the sound on and no subtitles, and it would, it would be entertaining, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Senor Steve. Steve.
What are we watching next week, Steve?
Next week is Jason's turn. So, Jason, what is the next movie?
So I decided that we're going to revisit a universe that I originally set up.
My bad. I thought for a second you were going to say, I think we're going to revisit a movie we already watched. I'm like, yo, no.
That is what I was going to say. No, I want to revisit the universe.
Muriel's Wedding.
In which we saw a story about vengeance. And we're going to watch another...
Mamma Mia.
Yep. We're going to watch the lady version of it. Lady Vengeance next week, y'all.
Oh. So maybe, Steve...
Let's get down to more Korean horror / what would that be? Suspense, thriller, wildness.
This might be a tough watch. I might watch the movie of this week next week. You know what I'm saying?
So click on the link up here because Steve is going to put it. And you can visit the first Vengeance film before you watch the Vengeance, Lady Miss Vengeance, or whatever is coming up.
Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and then Lady Vengeance.
That's right.
And I'll review of Back to the Future, which inspired the first Mr. Vengeance.
Correct.
Yes. Catch you next week. Bye. For
Bye-bye
Michaela,
now.
Dino, JP, Jason, Steve. Bye.
Hey, I'm Jason Echoes, and thank you for watching the Dimelo Network. There's some videos here. Watch one of them, and then you can subscribe to the network, and you can see more good stuff.